My name is Ethan Cole, and I am 27 years old. I stood in the middle of my parents' luxurious dining room, the golden chandelier above me sparkling like it was laughing at my misery. My whole family stared. Their expensive suits. Their cold eyes. Their prideful smirks. It felt like I was being judged by a court that already chose my punishment. It was Thanksgiving night, a night people celebrate family, love, and unity. But not in my family. Here, everything was a competition, and I was the one who always failed. My father slammed his hand on the table. Ethan, you have no job. No status. No reason to be under my roof. I stared back silently. If only they knew the truth. My mother folded her arms. We didn't raise you to chase childish dreams. Go live in the streets if that's what you want. Laughter filled the room. From cousins. From strangers my parents called family. Even my older brother Derek smiled, the perfect son. I finally spoke. I'm not poor. Derek scoffed loudly. You probably came here on a bus. You have nothing. I wanted to shout that I could buy this entire neighborhood. I wanted to flash my wealth like they worship. But I held it in. Wrong time. Wrong place. My father pointed at the front door. Leave. And don't come back until you become someone. My chest tightened. They really didn't know. I walked out slowly, my heart burning with anger and betrayal. As the door slammed behind me, the cold wind hit my face. Then, my phone buzzed. A message popped up. Congratulations. The acquisition is complete. You now own 72% of Cole International stock. Cole International. My parents' company. Their entire world. A slow smile spread across my face. They had just thrown out the man who now owned them. The wind was freezing outside my parents' mansion, but somehow, I felt warmer than ever. Because unlike them, I knew my truth. My name is Ethan Cole, 27 years old, the disappointment of the Cole family. To them, I'm the child who refused to carry the family legacy. But the real story? The truth they never cared to ask. It began 9 years ago. Flashback, age 18. I was the quiet son, the one who preferred computers and ideas instead of cocktails and country club bragging. While Derek learned to play golf and deceive investors, I learned how to build things, apps, systems, technology that could change lives. I got a scholarship to a prestigious tech school in Silicon Valley. I expected my parents to be proud. Instead, they mocked me. My father laughed. Apps. Computers. That's not business. That's a hobby. My mother added. If you refuse to join your father and brother, you are on your own. So I left home with no money, but with one thing far more powerful. A dream. I lived in a tiny studio apartment in San Francisco, the type with peeling walls and a noisy heater. I worked nights at a grocery store, barely sleeping, pouring every spare second into a software idea I believed in. Most nights, I ate cheap noodles. But every day, I fed my ambition. First success. I built a digital payment app, FlashPay, simple, fast, with zero transfer fees. No bank would help me. No investor believed in me. Yet millions of people did. FlashPay exploded across the country within months. Users. Investors. Partnerships. At 21, I sold it. My bank account showed $18.7 million. I cried that day not from joy, but because I realized something painful. My family would only love me after I earned money, and I wasn't sure I wanted their love anymore. The rise of EC Holdings. I invested in ideas nobody else saw: renewable energy tech, AI platforms, real estate data systems. By 25, I owned Heavy Checkmark, 2 high-end tech companies. Heavy Checkmark, a luxury penthouse in New York City. Heavy Checkmark, a private island co-owned with my mentor. Heavy Checkmark, a growing empire worth hundreds of millions. And yet, I stayed hidden. No press. No interviews. A silent king in a noisy world. Why? Because the people who raised me only valued status, and I refused to let them use me like a trophy. Back to the present. As I stood outside their mansion, the message from my assistant replayed in my mind. You now own 72% of Coal International. Not a threat. Not revenge. Just business. My parents worshipped power. Well, now I was the one with power. My phone buzzed again. A call from my assistant, Victoria. I answered calmly. Sir, congratulations once again, she said. Her voice was sharp, confident. This makes you the majority owner. Their company is officially in your hands. Good, I said quietly. But don't tell the board yet. Not until I'm ready. And when will that be? I looked back at the mansion, its glowing lights, its fancy windows hiding cold hearts. When they finally see who I truly am, I replied. I slid into the back of my black Bentley, the car waiting just down the street so my family wouldn't see it earlier. The driver asked politely, Home, Mr. Cole? I smiled. Yes. Let's go home. The city lights soon surrounded me, tall skyscrapers and glowing billboards rising into the night sky. This was my world. Not theirs. But even with millions, even with victory so close, I felt a deep sting in my chest. Because no matter how successful you become, the pain of being unwanted never truly leaves. As we crossed the Brooklyn Bridge, I whispered to myself, they will know my name one day, and they will regret everything. Little did I know, that day was coming much sooner than I expected. The city skyline of Manhattan sparkled beneath me like diamonds scattered across dark velvet. The skyscrapers were fierce and proud, a reminder that power lived here. Dreams were made here. Legends were born here. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. I stepped into my penthouse, the place I called home. Floor-to-ceiling glass windows surrounded the massive living room, giving a breathtaking view of New York City. The marble floors reflected the warm glow of golden lights. Rare art decorated the walls, pieces collected from Paris, Dubai, and Tokyo. The place looked like success. But it felt like silence. A silence so deep, it reminded me how alone I truly was. My assistant, Victoria Hayes, stood waiting for me. Tall, confident, always dressed in sharp business suits, the only person in my life who knew the real me. Welcome back, Mr. Cole, she said with a polite smile. But she could see the tension in my eyes. I assume they didn't treat you well, she asked gently. I loosened my tie and took a long breath. No. But it doesn't matter now. Victoria walked over to the tablet on the glass coffee table and tapped it. A large holographic screen projected upward, displaying stock graphs, acquisition documents, and confidential deals. You have quite a week coming, she explained. She highlighted. Heavy checkmark, a partnership with a global tech conglomerate. Heavy checkmark, a real estate project in Los Angeles worth billions. Heavy checkmark, a major AI security patent recently approved. Heavy checkmark, invitations to elite finance galas and charity events. Heavy checkmark, a Forbes magazine request for a billionaire cover story. You're not just a wealthy man, Ethan, she said. You're one of the most powerful young entrepreneurs in America. Anyone else would smile. Anyone else would brag. But I felt nothing. Success without love is like a mansion with broken windows, beautiful, but the cold still gets in. Victoria sat beside me, lowering her voice. Are you okay? You look hurt. I stared out the window, at the glow of Times Square, at the busy white headlights rushing below. I just wanted them to be proud, I said. Not impressed. Proud. Victoria nodded slowly. Sometimes family isn't built from blood. Sometimes, it's built from loyalty. I appreciated her words. She cared, something my own family never offered me. She then changed the subject slightly. There's also news from your rival, Derek Cole. Even saying his name made my jaw tighten. Victoria brought up another file, images of Derek smiling smugly at a business conference, surrounded by photographers and reporters. He's struggling, she explained. Debt is growing. Investors are losing patience. He's hiding the truth. Of course he was. Derek lived on lies, the golden sun with a rotten crown. Victoria continued. If he doesn't fix things soon, Coal International will collapse. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, thinking deeply. You now own the company, Ethan. You can save them, she said. Why should I? I whispered. Why save people who never even tried to save me? Victoria didn't push further. She simply placed a folder on the table. When you're ready to choose, she said softly. I'll support whatever decision you make. She left the room quietly. I walked toward the panoramic window again, staring at the glowing empire beneath my feet. Buildings reaching the sky. Streets full of ambition. The city admired me. The world needed me. But the one thing I ever wanted, love from my own parents, remained out of reach. A sudden notification vibrated my phone. Unknown number. Enjoy your throne, little brother. Watch how fast I take it from you. The message was from Derek. I froze. The game had just begun. And this city wasn't big enough for the both of us. I stared at Derek's message for a moment, feeling that familiar sting in my chest. It wasn't the first time he tried to crush me, and it wouldn't be the last. Because to him and to my parents I was a mistake that refused to disappear. And it all began years ago. Flashback, the day I betrayed the family. I was 17, sitting in my father's massive office, the headquarters of Coal International. Glossy floors, cold walls, and framed photos of Derek shaking hands with powerful businessmen. I never saw a single photo of myself in that building. My father spoke in that authoritative tone that always made the room feel smaller. You will start working in the company after graduation, he said. It's what every coalman does. He didn't ask what I wanted. He ordered my future like he was choosing a tie. My mother smiled proudly, already celebrating the decision. She placed her hand over Derek's shoulder, as if she were polishing her trophy. But I had already made my choice. I took a deep breath. I don't want to join the company, I said softly. I want to study technology. I want to create something new. Silence. Then came the laughter. Derek nearly choked on his own ego. My father's face darkened like a storm cloud. You want to throw away generations of legacy for gadgets, he spat. It's not throwing away, I tried to explain. It's evolving. The world is changing. He slammed his hand on the desk. Don't you dare lecture me on business. You are nothing without this family. My mother stepped forward. Technology will fade, she sneered. But power, real power, comes from money and reputation. Derek smirked at me. You'll come crawling back. You always do. I turned to leave but froze at the door when my father said, if you walk out, consider yourself no longer a coal. That sentence. That was the first time he disowned me. The night that broke me. A week later, they hosted a large banquet for Derek, celebrating his appointment as vice president of the company at age 21. Everyone praised him. The future of the coal empire, a brilliant young leader, the perfect heir. I stood in the back, invisible. A ghost at my own family's event. I overheard my mother whisper to a guest. Oh, Ethan. He's nothing special. A shame really, he'll never be what Derek is. My heart cracked, deeper than any failure ever could. I left the banquet early, walking into the cold evening with tears burning my eyes. That night, I promised myself something. If they wouldn't let me be somebody in their world, I would become somebody in my own. A king without a crown. A success without their permission. Return to the present. I blinked, shaking the memory away as the city lights blurred in my vision. Victoria returned to the room with 2 glasses of sparkling water. She noticed the tension in my eyes and asked, thinking about them again? I nodded. That family never gave me a chance, I said. They built Derek like a castle, and treated me like sand. Victoria placed a supportive hand briefly on my shoulder. Yet here you are, stronger than every one of them. I wished that made the pain go away. But scars don't disappear just because you've grown muscles around them. Suddenly, another notification appeared on the holographic screen, a news report. Coal International announces expansion under Derek Cole's leadership. My blood boiled. My investment was funding that expansion. My ownership made it possible. Yet he took all the credit. I clenched my fist, whispering to myself. They chose him over me once. I won't let them do it again. Revenge was no longer a petty thought. It was becoming a plan. A silent, powerful plan. And soon the world would see the real truth. The son they threw away was coming back to claim everything. If you ask the world who Derek Cole is, they would describe him as heavy checkmark charming, heavy checkmark smart, heavy checkmark a natural leader, heavy checkmark the perfect son of a powerful family. He is the kind of man who walks into a room and everyone acts like the son just entered. Cameras love him. Investors trust him. And our parents, they worship him like a king. But what they don't know is simple. His kingdom is crumbling. Derek's glittering illusion. The next morning, the headlines were everywhere. Derek Cole attends Wall Street Gala, marking another victory for Cole International. Images showed him in a tailored navy suit, champagne in hand, surrounded by New York's richest families. He grinned like he owned the world. Perfect hair. Perfect smile. Perfect lie. The truth. He was drowning. Victoria stood beside me in the penthouse as we reviewed confidential corporate reports on the holographic display. She pointed at the figures. Derek has been taking out unauthorized loans, she said. Hundreds of millions. Most of it is already gone. How? I asked, trying not to sound satisfied. Poor decisions. Failed projects overseas. Unpaid taxes. And rumors say, a secret gambling problem. I saw Derek's laughing face on the headline again, but now, I saw it clearly. It wasn't confidence. It was fear hiding behind a mask. Victoria crossed her arms. If the board finds out, he will lose everything. And if Mom and Dad find out, I muttered. Her expression turned serious. They will finally see who they chose. A brother built on lies. Our parents raised Derek to believe the world owed him success. He was fed with gold spoons, praised for breathing, celebrated for existing. When he messed up, he was excused. When I succeeded, I was ignored. I remembered a time in high school when I won a national tech competition. My mother barely clapped. Meanwhile, Derek scored a goal in a charity football match and they threw a whole party. I used to think I was invisible to them. But really, they just couldn't see past Derek's shine. A shine that was artificial. A shine that I had the power to take away. The meeting. That afternoon, Victoria arranged a discreet meeting with 2 board members, both wearing expensive suits and worried expressions. We need someone who can control Derek, one of them said. He's reckless. If something isn't done soon, Cole International will collapse. I leaned back in my leather chair, calm and collected. Interesting, I said. You want me to take control? They exchanged nervous looks. You are the majority shareholder, Mr. Cole. You are the only one with the power to fix this. I could have declared myself chairman right then. But something inside me whispered. Not yet. Let him fall a little more. Let them see. I'll consider it, I finally replied. The men nodded and left, relief and fear mixed on their faces. The party that exposed everything. That night, Derek was hosting a lavish rooftop party in downtown Manhattan. A celebration of another fake milestone. I wasn't invited, of course. But my eyes were everywhere. Victoria showed me a live feed, Derek bragging loudly, surrounded by gold diggers and fake friends. Then, someone whispered into his ear, a banker. Derek's smile faded instantly. His face turned pale. Victoria zoomed in on his expression. He just learned one of his loans defaulted, she said. The golden sun broke into sweat. I watched through the screen as Derek slipped away from the crowd, panic tightening his shoulders, his perfect mask cracking. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The dangerous truth. Victoria turned off the screen slowly. He's losing everything, Ethan, she said. And he knows someone else is winning. Her eyes met mine. He knows it's you. I stood at the window, seeing the lights of Manhattan stretch far beneath me, a city filled with ambition, greed, and consequences. Derek had spent his life stepping on others, especially me. Now the ground beneath him was disappearing. But before I could decide whether to help him or finish him, my phone buzzed again. This time, a different message. We know your secret. You're not the only Cole with power. No name. Just a warning. I looked at Victoria. Someone else was watching. Someone dangerous. And this family war was no longer just between brothers. The city lights outside my penthouse glimmered like tiny stars lost among the chaos of Manhattan. But inside, a storm was brewing. Not the kind with rain or thunder, a storm of secrets, betrayal, and decisions that could change everything. My phone buzzed again, and I nearly ignored it. But something in the text made me pause. Ethan Cole, if you value your empire and your family, check the attached files. Derek is in deep corporate fraud. Lives and careers at risk. No name. No number. Just the message, and a set of encrypted documents. I hesitated. My hand trembled slightly as I opened the files. The shocking discovery. The first document was a spreadsheet of transactions. Hundreds of millions of dollars were being moved through fake shell companies, offshore accounts, and untraceable investments. My heart raced as I scrolled further. Every number, every signature, every authorized deal pointed to one man, Derek Cole. The second file was even worse: emails and memos detailing deliberate misinformation to shareholders, falsified reports to investors, and instructions to hide failing projects. I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't just poor management, this was criminal. Victoria noticed my sudden tension. "Ethan, what is it?" she asked cautiously. I swallowed hard. "It's Derek. His committing fraud. Massive fraud. And if this gets out..." Victoria's eyes widened. The company could collapse. The board, your parents, everyone involved could be ruined. I rubbed my temples, trying to calm the surge of anger, disbelief, and worry that burned through me. Torn between revenge and loyalty. 4 years, my parents had humiliated me, ignored my achievements, and celebrated Derek's every move. My instinct screamed, use this to crush him, take everything, and watch them suffer. But another part of me, the part one didn't expect, hesitated. If I exposed Derek, my parents would be humiliated, yes. But Cole International would fall too. Employees could lose jobs, partners could be bankrupted, and thousands of innocent people could suffer. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the city. Neon lights bounced off the glass, and the noise of traffic below sounded distant, like life itself was whispering a warning. I whispered under my breath. What would Dad say, if he knew I was holding the power to ruin his favorite son? Victoria watched silently. She had learned over the years not to intervene when I wrestled with moral dilemmas. "Ethan," she said finally, "you can't let anger decide this. But you can use it to your advantage, smartly, strategically, without unnecessary destruction." I nodded slowly, the gears in my mind turning. The decision point. I thought back to that fateful Thanksgiving night, thrown out of the house, ridiculed by Derek, and dismissed by my parents. I could almost feel that icy dining room again. And yet, now I had the power they never imagined I would possess. I could expose Derek immediately, destroy him, and prove my parents wrong. Wait, watch, and maneuver, gain control quietly, let him dig his own grave, and protect the innocent. I didn't want to be the villain, not entirely. But I wasn't going to be a pawn either. Victoria cleared her throat. "You need a plan, Ethan. Every move counts. One wrong decision, and you could lose everything you've built." I exhaled slowly, staring at the dark city beyond the window. My mind felt like a chessboard, every piece moving under invisible rules. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, it wasn't from the same number. "We are closer than you think. Derek's fraud is just the beginning. Choose carefully, or lose everything." I froze. Someone knew more than I did. Someone was watching my every move, and this wasn't just a family feud anymore. I turned to Victoria. "Get me all the intel on Derek's recent deals. Every one of them. I want to know exactly who's involved and who's innocent." She nodded immediately. "Already on it, sir." I stared back at the glittering city skyline, my reflection mirrored in the glass. The lights seemed beautiful, but cold. In this city, power doesn't forgive. Power doesn't wait. And power is a dangerous thing when combined with betrayal. I whispered to myself, low and deadly. Derek. I'll handle you. But carefully. Every step. Every move. This time, the game is mine. And just like that, a storm began in my mind. A storm that could shake the foundations of my family, my company, and even the city itself. The city never sleeps. Even at midnight, neon signs buzzed and honked like restless ghosts. But nothing in Manhattan could prepare me for the sight that made my stomach drop and my heart ache. Scrolling through the evening news on my tablet, I froze. High society wedding announcement: Derek Cole and Isabel Harper set to marry in Manhattan Gala. My chest tightened. Isabel Harper. She was the first woman I ever loved seriously. She had been smart, ambitious, and beautiful, a rare combination that made her the perfect partner for someone like me. Or at least, for who I was before my wealth became hidden. But she left me when I was just starting out, when my bank account barely covered rent, and my apartment smelled like reheated noodles. She left me for stability. For comfort. For Derek. I felt my fists clench involuntarily. Flashback years ago. I was 22, barely a millionaire in the making. Isabel had been my rock, my confidant, my muse. I can see your future, Ethan, she whispered one night, holding my hand tightly. You're going to be great. But, you need recognition. You need people to see it. I had smiled, eyes sparkling with hope. But my parents' scorn had worn her patience thin. She couldn't handle the uncertainty. She wanted wealth, influence, and respect immediately, things I didn't have yet. I'm sorry, Ethan, she had said, tears in her eyes. I love you, but I can't wait. I need stability. I need security. And with that, she left. I remember standing in my tiny apartment, watching the taxi take her away. My heart shattered, and yet I promised myself. I'll succeed, not for her, not for anyone, but to show that I can. That I will rise without anyone's approval. Back to the present. Seeing her now, engaged to Derek, stirred every wound I thought I had healed. I rubbed my temples. Damn it, I muttered. Victoria noticed my tension. Ethan, she asked cautiously. I knew this would happen eventually, I said, my voice low. But I didn't expect it so soon, or so public. Do you still love her? Victoria asked carefully. I exhaled slowly. I don't know. Not in the old way. But, it hurts. It still hurts to see her with him. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was intertwined with business, family, and pride. Derek had always wanted everything I loved: attention, power, and now Isabel. The uncomfortable truth. I leaned back in my leather chair, staring at the city lights. Manhattan shimmered below me, elegant and ruthless. It reflected everything I had gained and everything I still wanted. The thought struck me suddenly. If I exposed Derek's fraud, Isabel would be humiliated too. She might be innocent in all of this, but she would suffer. And for the first time in years, I hesitated. Victoria broke the silence. Ethan, you can't let emotions cloud your judgment. Not now. Not ever. You have power, influence, and the means to protect what matters. But you have to decide what matters more, revenge or control. I didn't answer. I stared at her newsfeed, watching her smiling face in the announcement, holding Derek's hand, laughing under the chandeliers. A bitter part of me wanted to destroy them both. Another part wanted to protect her, even from me. I whispered under my breath. You left me when I had nothing, and now I have everything. But I won't let love or hate ruin the empire I've built. The stirring of a plan. The night stretched long. Manhattan's lights flickered, taxis roared, and the city pulsed like a living organism. I knew two things for certain. Derek's empire was fragile. Isabel was tangled in his web, willingly or not. And I had the choice to step in, or step back. A sudden buzz on my phone made my pulse quicken. Another anonymous message. Be careful with love and family. One wrong move, and everyone you care about will suffer. The city felt smaller suddenly, suffocating, alive, dangerous. I pressed my fingers against my forehead, thinking of Derek's arrogance, Isabel's smile, and the empire I now controlled. Somewhere deep inside, I realized. This was no longer just a war for business. This was a war for everything: power, family, love, and pride. And in Manhattan, nobody played fair. The streets of Manhattan gleamed under the early morning sun, the hustle of the city already pulsing through the avenues. Car horns, delivery trucks, and the low hum of the subway created a chaotic symphony, but inside my penthouse, there was silence. A silence filled with purpose. For years, I had learned that power was not about flashy announcements or public confrontations. True power was quiet, calculated, invisible, until it struck. Today was that day. The silent acquisition. Victoria entered the room, tablet in hand, her expression serious. "Everything is ready," she said. "The acquisition of Lement Supply, as we discussed. Once complete, you'll control 48% of your parents' supply chain." I leaned against the glass railing overlooking the city. My reflection stared back at me, calm, collected, a man who held more influence than anyone realized. "How quiet?" I asked. "Completely. They won't see it coming. Contracts signed, shares transferred, ownership verified. The only people who know are us and the board of Lement Supply." I smiled slightly. That was perfect. No confrontation. No drama. Just a subtle shift in power. "Do it," I said. "Now." Victoria nodded and tapped the tablet. Seconds later, confirmation emails started arriving, legally binding, silent, irreversible. The balance of power was beginning to tilt. The first signs of change. I didn't expect immediate reaction, that's the beauty of subtlety. But within hours, things started to unravel. A call came from a panicked family friend. "Ethan, have you seen what's happening with Lement Supply? Your parents are calling meetings, trying to figure out why contracts are shifting. Something isn't right." I listened quietly, noting every detail. Derek was furious, pacing the room in his own office, unaware of my involvement. "Keep monitoring," I instructed Victoria. "I want to know every reaction. Every conversation. Every panic." She nodded. "Understood. They won't suspect you." And they didn't. The invisible hand of power. I spent the rest of the day in my penthouse, sipping black coffee, staring at the city. Manhattan looked peaceful from above, streets buzzing, people hustling, life moving on as usual. Yet below the surface, everything was shifting. By nightfall, subtle changes appeared in emails, supply contracts, and board communications. Suppliers began reaching out to me instead of my parents. Payments were being redirected. And Derek, unaware of the growing storm, was scrambling to maintain appearances. Victoria walked in with a brief smile. "It's working. They're beginning to feel the pressure." I nodded, not celebrating yet. There was still much to do. The cost of silence. Sitting alone, I reflected on what I had done. I wasn't destroying anyone yet, just moving the pieces into place. But power, even silent, always came with consequences. A message flashed on my phone. "Impressive. But remember, every action has a reaction. Not all who watch you are friendly." I frowned. Someone was aware. Someone was close enough to monitor my moves. I tapped my fingers on the glass railing. Manhattan stretched endlessly before me, a city of ambition, secrets, and danger. And now, it was mine to navigate, carefully. I whispered to myself. "They'll never see me coming, and when they do, it will be too late." A quiet threat. That night, I watched the skyline, the city alive beneath me. Lights flickered like distant stars. I could almost hear Derek's frantic energy through the walls, his pride crumbling without him knowing why. Power in silence. That was my weapon. And the first wave had hit. But the message on my phone lingered in my mind. Not all who watch you are friendly. Who else was aware? Who else had plans that might collide with mine? The answer didn't matter, not yet. The city was mine. For now. And I was ready to take everything from those who thought they controlled me. The evening air in Manhattan was crisp, carrying the faint scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby street vendor. But in the Cole mansion, the air was tense, heavier than any winter wind. Dinner had begun as usual, fine china, sparkling silverware, and the soft murmur of polite conversation. But behind the polished smiles, trouble was already brewing. The first signs of panic. Across the table, my father stared at his tablet, a frown creasing his forehead. What is this?" he muttered, tapping furiously at the screen. My mother leaned over, her voice sharp. "What do you mean, Harold? Sit down, don't panic over numbers." Derek, ever the golden boy, tried to mask his concern with a smug smile. "It's probably nothing. Some banking error, I'm sure." But I knew better. The silent strike. Hours earlier, Victoria had confirmed the results of the Lement supply acquisition. The frozen funds, delayed shipments, and redirected contracts had quietly begun. The Cole family empire, the one my parents prided themselves on, was now subtly under my control. From my penthouse, I watched the news alerts light up, suppliers complaining, banks requesting clarifications, and stakeholders demanding explanations. Derek had no idea I had orchestrated this. It was beautiful in its precision, a silent strike that left them scrambling without a clue. Family tension unfolds. At the dinner table, my mother's voice was tight with frustration. "Harold, are you telling me that the payments, they haven't gone through?" My father, normally so composed, looked helpless. "It's not a technical issue. Someone must be interfering." Derek slammed his fork down. "Interfering? Who would dare? None of them suspected me. None of them could." I sat across from them silently, sipping water, my reflection in the crystal glass reminding me of all the years I'd been invisible to this family. Let them squirm a little longer, I thought. Let them taste the fear of losing control. The board's panic. A private call from Victoria updated me. "The board is in chaos. Your parents are trying to contact Lement Supply executives directly. Derek is panicking, issuing orders nobody can follow. And the freeze on funds. It's working exactly as planned." I allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile. My parents had treated me like a failure for decades, but now they had no idea that the one they dismissed was orchestrating their downfall or, in reality, their wake-up call. The dinner conversation. My mother's voice rose, trembling slightly. "Derek, you need to handle this immediately. You're the president, what are you doing?" Derek's pride cracked. He looked helpless for once, glancing nervously at his father. I've been trying, but everything is frozen. Banks, contracts, suppliers, it's like someone has blocked all our access." My father, white-faced, muttered under his breath. "Impossible. Who would?" They had no idea. The architect of this chaos sat silently among them, enjoying the spectacle. A silent lesson. I realized something as I watched them scramble. Power wasn't about shouting or showing off. It wasn't about grand gestures or angry confrontations. True power was invisible. It was subtle. It was the kind that forced others to act while remaining unseen. Tonight, my parents were learning a lesson they had never taught me: humility, patience, and the reality that wealth without wisdom meant nothing. Victoria's voice buzzed through my earpiece softly, almost a whisper. "They still don't know it's you, Ethan. Enjoy the moment, but be careful. Pride can make even the strongest fall faster than expected." I leaned back in my chair, eyes fixed on the Manhattan skyline glowing through my penthouse windows. The city never stopped moving. Manhattan's streets were alive with noise, lights, and secrets. And tonight, one of those secrets was about to walk straight into my life. Victoria had just left after briefing me on the latest moves. Derek was panicking further, banks were calling, and suppliers were questioning his management. My penthouse felt unusually quiet, almost too peaceful. Then, my phone buzzed. A call from an unknown number. I hesitated. But something in the way the caller's ID appeared told me this wasn't ordinary. "Ethan Cole," a low, calm voice asked. "Yes. Who's this?" I replied, cautious. "My name is Mr. Alcott. A friend of the family, a longtime friend. And I have information you need to know." The dark revelation. I motioned for him to continue. His voice was steady, but the words that followed made my blood run cold. "Derek has been involved in something far worse than simple fraud. Illegal acquisitions. money laundering, offshore accounts tied to criminal organizations. And if this gets out, your entire family, your parents, Derek, everyone connected could face investigation by federal authorities. I felt my heart tighten. My hand unconsciously tightened around the edge of my desk. Why are you telling me this? I asked cautiously. Because Derek doesn't realize how deep the web is, Alcott replied. And because you have a chance to intervene before it's too late. You control the levers now. You can save the family or let them crash. The weight of choice. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the city skyline. Neon lights reflected off the glass like distant stars, mocking the chaos about to descend. For years, my parents had mocked me, ignored me, humiliated me. Derek had flaunted his superiority, believing it was unshakable. And now, I held the ultimate power. I could expose Derek immediately, possibly destroying him, the company, and humiliating my parents. Use the information strategically, gain control while minimizing collateral damage. Do nothing, let them spiral, but risk innocent lives caught in the fallout. The city below seemed to whisper, decide carefully. A strategic conversation. Alcott's voice cut through my thoughts. Ethan, you must act with caution. Derek is dangerous. And those he's entangled with are not forgiving. You move too quickly, and you risk everything you've built. I clenched my jaw. I don't want to destroy him, not entirely. But I won't let him take the company or ruin the family in the process. They've underestimated me for too long. Good, Alcott said. I'll help you. But remember, secrets have a way of surfacing. And enemies, always watch. I felt a chill. Someone else was aware, somewhere in the shadows. And if they knew my moves? I turned to Victoria, who had quietly re-entered the room. Her eyes met mine. We need to plan carefully, she said. This isn't just about Derek anymore. It's about the entire network he's involved in and whoever is monitoring him. The rising storm. I walked toward the window, staring down at the city streets. Manhattan glimmered like a playground for the powerful, but beneath the glitter were shadows, criminals, opportunists, and ambitious players waiting to strike. Derek had been playing a game he thought he controlled. But now, the board had changed. And I held the pieces. Alcott had handed me more than information, he had handed me a map of the battlefield. The question now was, would I play carefully and win, or act recklessly and watch everything collapse? One thing was certain, the war for power, family, and legacy was no longer a simple sibling rivalry. It had become a battle with far-reaching consequences, and someone else was watching, waiting for the wrong move. The morning sun hit Manhattan like a spotlight, reflecting sharply off the glass skyscrapers. The city was alive with its usual hum, honking taxis, sirens, the chatter of pedestrians, but today, it felt different. Tension hung in the air, heavy and electric, as if the entire city knew that a storm was about to break. I sat in my penthouse, black coffee in hand, scrolling through the news feed. My assistant, Victoria, stood silently behind me, always attentive, always calculating. Then I saw it. Breaking, investigative journalist exposes possible fraud in Coal International, families, CEOs, and investors on edge. The headline made my pulse spike. The journalist's investigation. The journalist, a sharp-eyed woman named Clara Vance, had dug deep. Her report outlined questionable financial dealings, late-night acquisitions, and sudden shifts in contracts that hinted at mismanagement and fraud. While she didn't name Derek directly, the implications were clear. I scrolled through the documents attached to her story, spreadsheets, supplier emails, and insider tips. My eyes narrowed as I realized something crucial. The media storm was about to hit my parents' empire. Victoria stepped closer. Ethan, this is escalating fast. If they go public with this, the board and your parents will be under intense scrutiny. And Derek, he's not ready for this. I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. This was the crossroads I had been preparing for, consciously or not. A choice of power and morality. I leaned back in my leather chair and let my mind wander to the past. My parents had mocked me, ignored me, and celebrated Derek while dismissing everything I had worked for. For years, I had held back, silent, calculating, invisible. Now, the opportunity was in front of me. I could step in quietly and protect the family, revealing just enough influence to stabilize Coal International and prevent a public collapse. Let them crumble, exposing Derek and my parents to humiliation and financial disaster, gaining ultimate control but at a human cost. Find a middle path, subtly steering the company while remaining hidden in the shadows, letting them feel pressure but not ruin. Victoria watched me with steady eyes. Whatever you decide, Ethan, this is bigger than personal revenge. This is power, influence, and legacy all wrapped together. One wrong move, and everything you've built could be at risk. I took a long sip of coffee, staring at the skyline beyond the glass. Manhattan shimmered, beautiful and ruthless, a city that reflected the exact stakes I was facing. The public storm begins. By mid-afternoon, the press conference began at a luxury hotel downtown. Investors, journalists, and high-profile stakeholders filled the room, cameras flashing. Derek Cole appeared first, polished, smiling, trying to mask the panic brewing beneath his tailored suit. I watched remotely from my penthouse as he stumbled through rehearsed statements. Claimed transparency, commitment to growth, and dedication to investors. But the cracks were there, his voice slightly unsteady, his eyes darting nervously. Clara Vance's questions were sharp and unrelenting. Mr. Cole, can you explain the sudden acquisition of Lemont Supply and the resulting freeze in your company funds? Derek's confident smile faltered. Well, that's a minor oversight, technical issues, easily resolved. Investors whispered. Cameras zoomed. The facade was crumbling, and I didn't have to lift a finger. The silent crossroads. I stood by the window, hands clasped behind my back, feeling the weight of my power. If I revealed my involvement, I could stabilize the company, protect some lives, and gain the respect of my parents and board, but it would also let Derek live another day. If I stayed silent, the family would face public humiliation. Derek could be destroyed, my parents forced to confront their own mistakes, and I would gain ultimate leverage. I let the city lights reflect in my eyes. Every street below seemed to whisper possibilities, chaos, victory, revenge, or redemption. Victoria's voice brought me back to reality. Ethan, they're all watching. Every choice you make right now will echo for years. I exhaled slowly. Yes, but power isn't about being watched. It's about choosing when to act, and when to wait. And right now, we wait. The calm before the storm. As the press conference continued, Derek floundered, the journalists pressing harder, and my parents fumbled with statements. Meanwhile, I stayed unseen, a ghost in the shadows, controlling more than anyone realized. I whispered to myself, low and dangerous. Soon, they will all see who truly holds the power. And when they do, nothing will ever be the same. The winter air bit sharply against my face as the black Rolls-Royce glided through the busy streets of Manhattan. Neon lights reflected off the car's polished surface, giving it a near-ethereal glow. People walking along Fifth Avenue stopped, turning to stare, but I didn't care. I had come for one purpose, to remind my family who I had become. I settled into the plush leather seat, adjusting my cufflinks and watching the city blur past. Victoria sat beside me, quietly surveying the route. She didn't need to say anything, she knew the tension building inside me. This is the moment, I said softly. Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line. Remember, patience, Ethan. Show them power, but don't reveal everything. I nodded. Power was silent. But some lessons required a dramatic entrance. Arriving at the mansion. The Rolls-Royce slowed at the Cole family estate. The grand gates opened automatically, but the security staff froze when they saw me step out. For years, I had been the disgraced son, the one ignored, dismissed, and even told to go live in the streets. Now, I returned not as a failure, but as a man in control. I stepped onto the driveway, the snow crunching softly beneath my polished shoes. Reporters would have called it cinematic, if anyone had expected me to return. Inside, the house buzzed with preparations for another family gathering. My parents had invited close friends and business associates, a typical display of their wealth and pride. But when they saw me, Everything changed. Shock at the door. My father froze mid-conversation. His glass of wine trembled in his hand. Ethan. His voice was sharp, but faltering. My mother's face drained of color. You, what, how? Derek, standing in the corner, went pale, and then his face twisted into a mask of fury. You, how did you get here? I smirked slightly. I drove myself, brother. Thought I'd remind everyone what success looks like. They had no idea. Not only had I acquired strategic companies that now controlled part of their empire, but I had also positioned myself perfectly to oversee their finances from the shadows. The silent power play. I walked slowly through the room, all eyes on me. Conversations died mid-sentence. Chairs scraped against marble floors. Guests whispered, unsure of what they were witnessing. Is this some stunt? My father finally asked, his voice tight with disbelief. I stopped in front of him, calmly looking him in the eyes. Not a stunt. A reminder. For years, I was invisible to you. Ignored. Dismissed. Today, I'm here to show you exactly who I am. Derek's fists clenched. His jaw tightened, but I could see the panic behind his anger. The acquisitions, the frozen funds, the press conference, all of it had been orchestrated quietly, and now I was here, physically asserting my presence. The family's reactions. My mother staggered back slightly. Ethan, we didn't expect. You never expected anything from me, I interrupted, my voice calm but deadly. You always favored Derek. You always mocked my choices. But that's the past. Guests murmured nervously, sensing tension thick enough to choke the room. Derek's face was red, but he didn't speak. He knew, deep down, that this confrontation wasn't going to end in his favor. Victoria quietly handed me a tablet. I tapped a few commands, and on the screen, a live feed of Coal International supply chain, now under my partial control, displayed in real time. My parents gasped. Derek's eyes widened. Yes, I said softly. I've been the one quietly moving the pieces. Every missed payment, every frozen fund, every shift in contracts, all under my control. The room went silent. The power balance had shifted, and they finally understood that the son they had abandoned was now the one holding the strings. The calm before the storm. I looked at each of them, my parents, Derek, and even the unsuspecting guests. Manhattan's skyline shimmered through the windows behind me, reminding me that this city rewarded the bold, the calculated, and the patient. Enjoy the moment, I whispered to myself. Because this is just the beginning. As I turned to leave, Derek's voice cut through the tension. You think this is over? You think one entrance changes anything? I paused, turning back slowly with a faint smile. No, Derek, it's never over. But from now on, the game is mine. The dining hall of the Cole mansion was silent, the kind of silence that weighs on the chest. Crystal chandeliers reflected light onto polished floors, but even the grandeur of the room could not distract from the tension vibrating in the air. I stood at the head of the table, tablet in hand, my reflection shimmering faintly against the marble. My parents, Derek, and a few remaining guests stared at me wide-eyed, uncomprehending, their composure crumbling under the weight of what was about to unfold. Victoria stood slightly behind me, calm, poised, the perfect shadow to my storm. The calm before the storm. I tapped the screen, and a series of spreadsheets, emails, and financial documents projected onto the large screen behind me. The room seemed to shrink under the glow of the data. Look closely, I said, my voice steady, controlled. Every fund Derek moved, every offshore account, every falsified report, it's all here. Derek's face turned pale. My parents leaned forward, eyes narrowing, their previous arrogance replaced by disbelief. You're lying, my mother whispered. Am I? I asked, tapping a few more files. Screenshots of Derek's private emails appeared. Correspondence with shell companies, false invoices, and backdated contracts that shifted millions of dollars into accounts only he controlled. Derek's fist slammed on the table, the sound echoing through the room. Ethan, this isn't real. You're trying to humiliate me in front of them. I shook my head slowly. I'm not humiliating you, Derek. I'm showing you the truth. This empire you flaunt, the power you wield, You've been reckless. And now, the consequences are visible. The family reacts. My father sat rigidly in his chair, staring at the evidence like he couldn't comprehend it. How could you do this? He asked, but it was clear he was more shocked by Derek's actions than my control. My mother's lips trembled. Derek, you promised. You promised nothing, I interrupted. You built your golden child on lies, favoritism, and fear. I've been patient, but I also know how to protect myself, and the company. Derek's breathing grew heavy. He glanced at the tablet, then back at me, his eyes full of fury and fear. You think showing this proves anything? I can fix this. You don't understand the deals I've made. I smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. I understand perfectly. And I have everything I need to control the situation, without destroying you yet. A lesson in power. The tension in the room became almost unbearable. Every guest shifted uneasily, sensing the explosive energy but unsure how it would erupt. Power, I continued, pacing slowly, is not about showing off wealth. It's not about charm or favor. It's about control. And right now, I am in control. You, Derek, are the one exposed. And yet, I'm choosing not to destroy you. Derek's hands shook. My parents' faces were a mixture of anger, fear, and confusion. Victoria leaned over quietly, whispering, "He knows he can't move without consequences." "Exactly," I whispered back. "He's still breathing because I allow it. Not because he deserves it." The quiet threat. I turned the tablet toward my parents. "And this is why you need to rethink how you measure loyalty and success. For years, you favored appearances over substance. Derek may have smiled for you, but his actions almost destroyed everything you built." My mother's voice was trembling now. "Ethan, what will you do next?" I smiled faintly. "I'm not done yet. But consider this, the next move is mine to make. And if anyone thinks they can underestimate me again, they will regret it." Derek finally spoke, his voice low, threatening, yet trembling. "You think you've won? This isn't over. You'll see, Ethan. I won't go down quietly." I looked at him directly. "Good. I wouldn't want it any other way. But remember, I set the rules now. Not you." The room was thick with tension. I could feel the weight of power shifting, palpable in the air. The glow of Manhattan's skyline outside the Cole mansion contrasted sharply with the storm inside. Crystal chandeliers reflected the tension in the dining hall, where family pride, betrayal, and frustration clashed in silence. After the evidence I had presented in Chapter 13, the room should have recognized the truth. Derek's reckless actions, his hidden fraud, and his near destruction of the family empire were laid bare. Yet, my mother refused to see it. A mother's blindness. She clutched her pearls, her face pale and lined with shock, but her eyes weren't on Derek's documents or my quiet authority. They were on him, the golden son. "Derek, explain yourself," she demanded, her voice shaking. "Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't." He barely looked at me. Instead, he leaned back, shrugging, his arrogance partially intact. "Mom, it's complicated. You don't understand. I was trying to protect the company, the family. Things got messy, but I had good intentions." Her eyes softened. She nodded slowly. "Yes. Ethan can't see it the way we do. Only Derek knows how hard this is." I felt my chest tighten. Years of ridicule, neglect, and being dismissed flashed through my mind like a brutal montage. My parents had always elevated Derek, excused his mistakes, and overlooked me, even when I was the one quietly building everything from scratch. And now, they were repeating the same pattern. A silent breakdown. I sank slightly into the chair, my fingers gripping the edge of the table. On the outside, I remained calm, collected, untouchable. But inside, a storm raged. I had spent years proving myself, leaving home at 18, building successful companies, acquiring properties, earning respect, influence, and wealth. I had done it all without their guidance or approval. And yet, in the moment that mattered, their loyalty remained with Derek, the very person who had almost destroyed everything. I felt a flash of anger, a sharp, burning realization of how deeply I had been undervalued. Victoria, noticing my silent breakdown, stepped closer, whispering, "Ethan, breathe. They're blind, yes. But your power doesn't depend on their approval." I exhaled slowly, letting her words anchor me. The harsh truth of family. I looked around the table, my gaze lingering on my parents. The disappointment, fear, and pride in their faces created a maze I had to navigate carefully. "Mom. Dad," I finally said, my voice calm but edged with ice, "I've proven more than anyone here could imagine. Derek may have charm, appearances, and your blind loyalty, but appearances don't protect an empire. Knowledge, strategy, and action do. That's why I control the pieces now, not him." Derek's lips twitched with anger. "You think you can lecture me?" "No," I said softly, leaning forward. "I'm not lecturing. I'm explaining reality. You have a choice: recognize it, adapt, and survive, or continue ignoring the truth and watch everything collapse." My parents didn't answer. My mother's gaze returned to Derek, still blind to the damage, still clinging to her favored son. And I realized, with bitter clarity, some people are loyal to the wrong people. The silent strength. I clenched my fists under the table, breathing slowly, feeling the city's energy vibrate through me. Manhattan was alive outside, ruthless, ambitious, and unforgiving. And I had learned to harness that energy, to bend circumstances to my will. Inside, my parents' misplaced loyalty hurt more than Derek's arrogance ever could. But I knew my path. I knew my power. I knew the moves I had to make next. Victoria's hand brushed mine, silently acknowledging the storm I held inside. "Let them cling to illusions," I whispered to her. "I don't need their loyalty. I need control. And control I have." The room felt heavier, the air charged with tension, but I didn't waver. I had survived neglect, scorn, and dismissal. Now, I was untouchable even if their eyes refused to see it. New York City glowed beneath his penthouse windows, but tonight those lights brought him no comfort. The protagonist stood alone, watching the city pulse with life while his own world tightened like a trap around him. His assistant, Daniel, rushed into the room with a tense face. "Sir, you need to see this." He handed over a plain envelope, no address, no stamps. Someone had delivered it directly to the top floor. Inside were printed photos. Photos of his tech plans, confidential files, pictures of him entering and leaving meetings that were supposed to be private. And then one final image, his parents' house, with a red circle drawn around the window of their living room. A message scratched on the back. "You think Derek is your only threat. I know everything." His pulse jumped. Someone was watching him. Someone who wanted to control him. Someone who knew his family was his weakness, despite everything. Daniel's voice shook slightly. "We increased security after the press rumors, but this is different." He nodded, trying to steady his breathing. He had always guarded his empire carefully. Every deal, every secret, every person he allowed into his world. But now someone had slipped through the cracks. He dialed a trusted contact in cybersecurity, but before the call connected, his phone buzzed with a new notification. Anonymous transfer, $10 million lost from one of his offshore accounts. His hand froze. This wasn't just a threat. It was a declaration of war. The laptop screen suddenly flickered on by itself, someone hacking remotely. A masked figure appeared on the display. A distorted voice spoke. "You built an empire by staying silent. Now silence will destroy you. Choose your wealth or your family." Click. The screen turned black. He stood there, frozen. He had faced betrayal from his parents. He had tolerated Derek's arrogance for years. But this was someone who wanted everything he cared about, and they were already steps ahead. For the first time in years, he felt fear tighten his chest. Loneliness wasn't the worst part of success. The danger was. He looked back out at the glittering skyline, the city that had crowned him a king. Now it wanted to see if he could survive the shadows. And he whispered to himself, "If they want a war, they'll get one." The next morning arrived with a storm, not outside, but in his world. Conference calls cancelled. Meetings postponed. Investors panicking. Someone wanted to shake his empire until it cracked. As he stepped into his private boardroom, every executive turned in silence. News headlines flashed on the large screen. Billion-dollar tech empire under investigation. Is the youngest son a fraud too? His jaw tightened. This was Derek's scandal being twisted and pinned on him. Before he could respond, the boardroom doors swung open. A man in a perfectly tailored suit walked in. Tall. Sharp eyes. A cold smirk. Everyone moved aside like he was royalty. The protagonist recognized him instantly. Leon Maxwell. Founder of a rival tech giant. A billionaire known for crushing competition ruthlessly. Leon tapped the table with a single finger. So this is the famous self-made king, he said, chuckling quietly. The protagonist didn't respond. Silence, his strongest weapon. Leon leaned in, voice low but dripping with venom. Everything you built should have been mine. The deal your parents rejected, the partnership I offered them, it was meant to make me the powerhouse of this city. But they chose you. He looked shocked. His parents chose him? Leon straightened his suit. Your father wanted a legacy with my company. But when you ran away and started your own path, he turned to me. And I was supposed to lead the new era. The boardroom air felt ice cold. Leon smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Now, I'll take what I was promised. Your companies. Your influence. And when I'm done, your family will beg to replace you with someone worthy. Executives watched with fear and fascination. This was no ordinary threat. Leon walked toward the exit but stopped at the door, turning back with a stare sharp enough to cut. You think you built an empire alone? Watch how fast it collapses without protection. The doors closed behind him. For a moment, the protagonist couldn't breathe. This wasn't jealousy. It was revenge. Fueled by power, ego, and old wounds he never even knew existed. He understood now. Derek wasn't the biggest problem. His parents weren't even the true source of pain. The real enemy was a man who believed the protagonist's entire life was a stolen destiny. Alone in the boardroom, he whispered to himself. He picked the wrong person to destroy. But in the back of his mind, a dark question lingered. What if Leon was right? What if success had made him blind and this was the price? His empire stood tall today. But in the city of success, every tower can fall. New York City never sleeps, but that day, it screamed. Every newsstand, every billboard, every phone notification carried the same fire. Massive investigation, family-owned empire under scrutiny. Derek Coleman accused of grand corporate fraud. Younger son secretly connected to the crisis. The protagonist watched it unfold from the balcony of his penthouse, the city glittering below him, unaware of the silent war happening high above. He had spent years building his peace. Now chaos had come to collect a debt. His assistant, Elena, rushed into the living room, her tablet buzzing non-stop. Sir, the FBI just arrived, at your parents' estate. He closed his eyes. Not like this. He never wanted humiliation for them. Only truth. Television channels switched to a live broadcast. Derek, surrounded by agents, being escorted out of the company headquarters. Camera flashes. Reporters screaming his name. Their mother was there too, crying, trying to shield him from cameras. Their father stood frozen, not in fear, but in disbelief, as if this scandal was dirt beneath his polished shoes. Then the reporters began asking the question he feared the most. Where is the younger son? Is he involved? Is he the secret architect of all this? The media turned their curiosity toward him, the invisible son suddenly too visible. His phone vibrated. Caller ID, Mom. He hesitated. Then answered. Her voice trembled with rage. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted? You are destroying us. He tried to speak, but she didn't let him. Your brother is in trouble and you're hiding in your luxury. You abandoned us, and now you come back to ruin everything. The call cut. He stood still, crushed by a pain he thought he'd outgrown. He had tried to protect them. But they only saw him as the villain. Elena placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. They will know the truth soon, she whispered softly. He looked back at the screen. Derek, once the golden child, now looked small, terrified, as agents pushed him into a black vehicle. Crowds chanted, "Criminal! Liar! Fraud!" For a moment, the protagonist imagined being in his brother's place. Arrested. Alone. The whole world calling him a mistake. He shook it off. Derek chose this path. Not him. But the damage wasn't done. Another headline flashed, bolder, louder. Anonymous source claims younger son is the real mastermind. The boardroom betrayal. Leon's threats. The media's new hunger. Everything connected. Someone was puppeteering this chaos perfectly. And Derek wasn't the only target anymore. He was next. Night fell over the city like a heavy curtain, but sleep refused to visit him. The protagonist sat alone in his study, screens glowing around him, legal files, corporate documents, headlines, and confidential reports scattered like broken truths. His assistant Elena entered quietly, carrying a sealed envelope. Her face said everything before she spoke. "This came from your parents' lawyers, dated years ago." His heart stalled. He took the envelope with trembling fingers. Slowly opened it. Inside were official documents covered with signatures he recognized too well. His parents. Their attorneys. A notary stamp. He read the cold words. "This document hereby confirms that Adam Coleman is no longer a legal heir nor representative of the Coleman family estate." His name. Crossed out like a mistake. Like he never belonged in the first place. His chest tightened, a silent anguish rising. He flipped through more pages. His inheritance revoked. His rights to any family business fully removed. His name erased from every legal record tied to them. And the date. The day he left at 18. They hadn't waited for him to prove himself. They erased him before he even started. His voice cracked. "They never planned to take me back." Elena knelt beside him gently. "Adam, you built an empire without them. You don't need their approval anymore." But that wasn't the wound. It was the truth he had fought his whole life not to accept. They didn't just choose Derek. They deleted him. He stood and walked to the massive window overlooking Manhattan, the city where he became someone. Yet tonight, he felt like that boy again. Standing outside with a small suitcase. Begging for family. Being told he wasn't enough. His parents' faces flashed through his mind, the disappointment, the anger, the rejection. He whispered to the glass, voice barely holding together. "Why wasn't I worth keeping?" As if fate wanted to twist the knife deeper, another notification appeared on his TV screen, live coverage from the family mansion. His mother, speaking to reporters, wiping tears dramatically. "We don't understand why he turned against us. Especially when we gave our entire lives to support our only son, Derek. Only son. Publicly. Proudly. Cruelly. Like Adam never existed." The cameras loved the performance. Reporters nodded sympathetically. Derek, handcuffed behind her, smirked slightly even in disgrace. Elena clenched her fists. "They're lying to the world, and they're pretending you never mattered." Adam closed his eyes. The pain became anger. Anger became resolve. He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a mistake. And soon, everyone would remember his name. He turned away from the window, determination replacing heartbreak. "If they want war, I'll show them the king they tried to bury." But deep inside, a new fear awakened. If his own family could betray him so completely, who could he trust now? The city lights flickered like silver reflections of his racing thoughts. Adam had no time for romance, not anymore. But fate had its own twisted timing. A knock echoed through his penthouse hallway. Elena opened the door cautiously, then froze. There she stood. Vanessa Parker. The woman who shattered his heart years ago. Who left the moment he stopped being the poor dreamer she once admired and became a burden without money. She looked different now. More polished, wrapped in elegance and expensive jewelry. Her eyes, once filled with ambition and excitement, were now drowning in fear. "Adam," she whispered. He didn't move. Didn't blink. She stepped closer. You can't imagine how sorry I am." I was stupid. Blinded. I listened to your parents. Adam lifted a hand sharply, stopping her confession. My parents? He asked coldly. Vanessa swallowed hard. They convinced me to leave you. Said you would ruin my chances. Said you were nothing without their support. Every word stabbed deeper than the last. Elena watched from behind, protective and suspicious. Vanessa took a shaky breath. And now, Derek is in trouble. He turned into someone I don't recognize. He controlled me, used me, and now, I'm scared. She reached out, fingers trembling. Please, Adam. I had nowhere else to go. His muscles tightened. His mind rushed with possibilities. Was this fear real? Or a trap? Memories collided, the nights he spent crying alone after she left, the promises she broke, the humiliation of watching her appear in society pages beside Derek. He stepped back, jaw clenched. You expect me to believe you suddenly care? He asked. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life was letting you go. A silence heavier than truth itself settled in the room. Elena stepped forward. How do we know Derek didn't send you? She challenged. Vanessa's gaze snapped toward her. I know you're his assistant, she muttered. But I loved him first. Adam's voice turned ice cold. You loved money. Derek just had more at the time. Vanessa didn't deny it. Her silence was an admission. She looked straight into Adam's eyes. But look at you now. You have everything. And I still want you. Again, silence. Adam studied her carefully. A woman who once walked away without looking back. Now begging to return. His heart twisted, torn between memory and reason. I need to know the truth, he said finally. Are you here because Derek is falling, or because I am rising? Vanessa stepped closer, voice trembling. I'm here because I never stopped loving you. Her words hung there beautiful but dangerous. Elena watched Adam with worry, recognizing the old pain reopening in his eyes. Vanessa moved even closer. When suddenly, Adam's phone buzzed. One new message. No name. Just a threat. Don't trust the snake that shed its skin. She is working for us. Attached was a blurry photo. Vanessa, standing with Leon Maxwell. Adam's blood turned to ice. He slowly lowered his phone, staring at the woman who claimed love. Vanessa's expression faltered. Fear replaced sincerity. Adam, please listen. Click. Security doors locked automatically. Elena pressed the emergency control. Adam's voice cut like a blade. You picked the wrong side. And just like that, the woman he once loved became part of the war. But one question haunted him. Was she a liar all along? Or a prisoner begging to be saved? The city offered no answers. Only darker threats in the night. The night was too quiet. Adam sat alone in his office, the walls of glass revealing New York City glowing beneath him like a kingdom he fought to claim. He had survived betrayal, humiliation, threats, and heartbreak. And finally, he felt control tipping in his favor. Derek exposed. His parents desperate. Leon shaken by Adam's counter moves. Vanessa locked away, truth under investigation. For once, he could breathe. Elena entered, handing him a new stack of files, proof of fraud, hidden accounts, secret deals enough to bury Derek forever. You could end this tonight, she said gently. Adam looked at the evidence, his hand tightening around the folder. End it. But that word tasted like ashes. Because ending Derek meant ending his parents too. And despite everything, they were still his family. His voice was heavy. If I destroy him, I destroy them. Elena sighed, understanding his war wasn't only in boardrooms or headlines, it was inside his heart. He stood, walking toward the balcony doors, staring out into the endless city. He whispered to himself, "Can I save a family that never wanted me?" Before Elena could respond, his phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. Unknown threat. His pulse quickened as he read. You took everything from me. Now watch me destroy what you love. He froze. Then another message, instantly. Step 1. Check your back. His breath caught. Elena's eyes widened. Adam, don't move. Slowly, very slowly, Adam turned. His reflection in the glass twisted into reality. A dark silhouette stood inside the room. Close. Silent. Watching. A shadow holding something metallic that glinted under the city lights. The air turned ice cold. Every sound in the world seemed to disappear, except one. His own heartbeat. The figure stepped closer, voice low and venomous. This empire, this family, all of it will fall because of you. Adam's eyes widened. Leon. Derek. Someone else entirely. He didn't know. And before he could speak, the figure lunged. Adam stumbled backward. Elena screamed. Security alarms exploded through the room. And then, black. Screens flickered. Lights shook. Everything cut to silence. Fade out. The story continues. Black question mark ornament. Who do you think is standing behind Adam? Is it Derek seeking revenge? Leon striking first? Vanessa under orders? Or a new enemy hiding in plain sight?
Who is your favorite character so far? What would you do in this situation? Are you Team Justice or Team Revenge? Before you go, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Tell me your country or city. If you enjoyed this story, please hit like, smash the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Share this video with someone who loves dramatic folktales and city stories. Trust me, the next episode will be even more shocking than this one. You definitely don't want to miss it.